You know, in any relationship, communication is the most important thing. Often we think about communication as talking, but really half of the equation is listening. So we're here to talk about tips for listening, and we've got Eddie Lay here back, your second time. Welcome back.
My pleasure.
And you're going to give us some information on what a good listener is. But first I want to say you're a communication expert, and you are the owner of the Center for the Healthcare Communications, because you work with doctors a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
As well as other people. So what makes a good listener?
Well, first of all, people have to understand the difference between hearing and listening. Hearing is where we take in these sound waves, and that's pretty easy. Mm-hmm. Listening is interpreting the sound waves. So hearing is an easy thing to do. Listening takes work.
It does take energy. So you know how, like, when you're, and we've all done this, everybody here can relate to this. You're talking to someone and your head's going, and you have no clue what they're saying, and you just hope they don't ask you a question. What do you do? How do you rein yourself back in? Because you know when you kind of be a third-party observer and you know you're not listening, how do you get like, ooh, wake up, I gotta listen?
Yeah, one of the first things is we need to be fully present when we're listening. And one of the things we need to do is we need to be fully present with our eyes, our face, and our body. And that means eye to eye, face to face, and shoulder to shoulder. We need to be fully present.
Okay, so there's some nonverbal stuff going on you need to prove to somebody that you're doing.
So once we do that, then we're ready to move on to the next step, because listening is more than the ears. So once we do that, and I know some people might not like this suggestion, but it works. When you're listening to someone, pretend as though you're going to have a test on what they just said.
Really? Because I get anxious when I think about testing.
Yes, and what that will do is that will really keep you listening, and we could listen so much better than we think we can. And to give you an example of that, I went to a training years ago. There were 40 of us, and the first day we all stood up, we got into a circle. The first person said their name and favorite food. The second person had to say the first person's name and favorite food.
Oh, I've done those games.
The 40th person, guess what, had to name everyone. Well, the interesting thing is, at the training, almost everyone got every single person right because they were listening so carefully.
But doesn't this also have to do with memory, like short-term memory? Because, you know, I went to my grandmother's house and I took my toothbrush and my, you know, don't you have to kind of also...
Oh,
are you saying it's collective? You got to remember what everybody says?
Yeah, but...
Was I listening?
Yeah, but the thing is, surprisingly enough, if we listen very carefully, we could actually take in. And part of the reason that we don't listen very carefully is because while the other person's talking, instead of us listening, we're thinking about what we're going to say next.
Who doesn't do that? So you got to, like, set your agenda aside.
Right.
It's about trusting that you'll know what to say when the time comes, right? I'm guessing.
And there's a way that we could tell if somebody's actually listening, because what good listeners do is they listen to the other person and then they respond to that.
In their own words kind of thing?
Right. And I could always tell when someone's not a very good listener, because I was talking to a friend of mine a few weeks ago, and I just got back from New York City, and I said, oh, it was very exciting, I just got back from New York City, and he said to me, oh, I'm just planning my skiing trip now.
Oh, so they kind of jump to a different...
Right, like, and a good listener would say, well, how was your trip? That sounds exciting. Actually, I'm planning a trip too.
Right.
So we need to go back and forth. Good listeners respond. It's like a tennis game, you know, back and forth, back and forth. And with tennis, the other person has to react, otherwise there's no game.
Okay, these are all good tips. And like I said in the beginning, you want to have paper and pen because you gave some really good concrete tips on listening. Thank you for being here. We want to have you back. I know we do.
Well, my pleasure. And the one thing I wanted to mention, when you're talking to someone, you want them to feel like no one else exists in the world except for them.
And just in these last 4 minutes, I have felt that way.
Well, that's good.
So thank you.
My pleasure.
Okay, if you would like to get a hold of Eddie, you can do so by calling him at 440-338-3056 or log on to your website at communicatingwithpatients.com. Stay tuned. We have Romance Review coming up.
Next, want a new look for your living room? You can find it right inside your home sweet home. We'll show you how. Then, they're dieting as a duo, but the only thing they're losing is patience with each other. Coach Kathy weighs in.